Originally, I'm from Okmulgee, Oklahoma. Uh, that's a small community, a very diverse community. Well, I won't say diverse. It was split 50-50. Population about 13,000, half of them were African Americans. I think 58% during my time. And I was raised by mostly my grandparents and an uncle and auntie. Uh, well, my folks have been in Oklahoma for, I guess, years uh, before the 1900s. And they mostly were sharecroppers, small farmers, and especially like my dad, he was a do-it-all man. He was a handyman, a carpenter, we call it. But he did all the odd jobs uh, because he didn't have, during that time, they didn't believe in education, they believed in work. And I think my father had a third grade education. My mother had more. She went to Catholic school and she graduated at the 10th grade during that time. So that's the kind of a family breakdown. But back to Oklahoma, I was a good student in school, but my family was very poor. Money was hard to come by. And I spent a lot of times, I had good work ethics. I spent a lot of time in the cotton patch, hustling pecans, hustling scrap metal, because you had to get some money. And when I say money, we talking about $2, $3, $5. We didn't go beyond that. We never got that much money. But anyway, that's what I did growing up. First growing up, school-wise, I spent 2 years in Catholic school. Moved over to public school and got set back to the first grade because they wasn't on the same level. And that was kind of like hurt a little bit because when I was in school, I was always 2 years older than the rest of the students. And so by the time I got to the ninth grade and graduating, I was 16 years old already. I was older than most students. So when I graduated to the 10th, I went and asked my mom, I said, you know what, would you sign off on me to go into the military? I'm just gonna go in the National Guard because that's gonna be some money. Not much money, but it was some money. If you go back to that time, monthly rent probably, we never owned nothing. A monthly rent was $25 or $30 for a house then. And so when you're talking $50 or $100 extra a month, that's a lot of money. Yeah, lots of money. But anyway, I had relatives that were in World War I, World War II, a brother that was in the last of World War II and Korean War. And so those are kind of my influences. And especially one of my uncles. He was a paratrooper and he was a member of the Triple Nickel during World War II. And that was a big influence on me, and I still have his picture at home. And I always say I wanted to be a paratrooper because I got stories from him being a glider paratrooper or whatever. I was impressed. More or less him than my brother. My brother was a medic in the Korean War, and he had a lot of problems. But anyway, I emulated kind of off my uncle. So, fast forward a little bit when I get old enough in school, I just got tired. Me and my brother both were at the same school about the same time. We were raised together. We both joined the military together because we had agreed if we go into the military, it's going to relieve a lot of pressure off of the family because there was eight of us at home, and no one had a real job. Money was tight. I spent most of my time in the woods, hunting, squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, fishing. I wouldn't care how cold it was, we fished. So I was used to the elements, and I was used to the woods. But anyway, we decided to join the National Guard because the National Guard was recruiting minorities. Now, I'm in Oklahoma, you gotta remember that. And during that time, we couldn't even be downtown, main part of town, after 11 o'clock at night. Some people call it sundown towns. But to me, it was kind of that way. We knew we couldn't go over into 6th Street. We stayed on 5th Street. That's where we supposed to be, nowhere else. And that's the way minorities were treated back then. So anyway, we joined the National Guard. I think it's about 8 or 9 of those that were African American. I got to the National Guard and did my basic training Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and came through okay. Went to the National Guard. I stayed in the National Guard for a year, but I didn't really like it. I wanted to go active Army. National Guard gave me enough to know I can handle the Army. I was a small fellow then, smaller than I am now. Yeah, I was 118 pounds when I joined the National Guard, 5'4", believe it. I was still growing. Some people say I shouldn't have even been in the military, but I was there. So I asked, could I join the National Guard? They said, yeah, we'll let you go, but you're gonna get reduced 1 grade. I was doing good in the National Guard, and I was already a private first class. So they reduced me 1 grade to private E2, gave me approval to go into the regular Army. So I passed my paperwork and went to the regular Army. Now, here's the funny part about it. The group of us that came into the National Guard, along with my brother, we all went up to Oklahoma City to go join the regular Army. They didn't tell me that they had changed their mind. I didn't know better. So I'm in there doing the best I can to pass the entrance paperwork and the tests. And they had say, okay, we're not going. But they played me dumb. I passed everything, and the recruiter had me then because I signed off on everything. And they outside waving at me because I'm done. And I never did get over that, really. So, yeah, so I left and went to Fort Carson, Colorado for my processing, and then went on into Fort Sill, Oklahoma for artillery training. But lo and behold, they didn't know things were happening in the military. You gotta remember the draft was still on. So they thought they got away by not going into the regular Army. Even they were in the National Guard classified as 1D, they were still subject to go to Vietnam. So I'm gonna go back to where I was at. Got to Fort Sill, did my artillery training, and somebody mentioned that there was an airborne recruiter, and he wants to find people that want to go airborne. And my hand goes up. So I took my airborne physical and passed everything, and I got my orders for Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Now, I got to Fort Bragg in January of 1961. I went to airborne school. And 82nd Airborne Division had a tough jump school back then. And this was in January, and it was cold. I mean cold. But I hung in there, and I graduated from jump school. After graduating from jump school, I heard about soldiers up on the Smoke Bomb Hill. And they called them snake eaters, Sneaky Pete, guys that done some weird stuff. You know, and I say, well, that kind of piqued my interest. And they say, well, they spend a lot of time in the woods doing crazy stuff. I said, you know, I like that, I want that. And so we were talking in the barracks, and I told a couple of fellows, look, I'm gonna put my paperwork in to go join the Green Beret. And everybody laughed, say, look, you're I was 126 pounds at that time, and 5'6". I've grown a little bit. So they said, well, they're not gonna take you because you're too small, too young, because Green Beret required 21 years old and a Sergeant E5 at that time. This was 1961. And I said, I'm gonna try it anyhow. So I put my paperwork in, and we made a jump overseas in Panama, and then when I came back, my paperwork was approved to go to Special Forces. And I was happy, and I got the last laugh, and I'll see you. So I went up to Smoke Bomb Hill. I didn't know what I was getting into, really. And it was tough. And then the training started, and I'll never forget, they had a E8 they called Lionel Penn, Master Sergeant Penn, and Colonel Cole. And their job was just harass the newbies, the new recruits coming into the Green Beret. I mean, and we couldn't do anything right, nothing right. And I spent a lot of my time on extra duty, KP, guard duty, firing the boilers, police call, working the motor pool, whatever. But I was never training. I was always detailing, I call it. But I say, no matter what, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to drop out. I'm sticking in here. I'm staying in. And so eventually I did get assigned to a A-team. And I stayed on that A-team until I was able to qualify to become a Green Beret. And it was a little different, a lot different than it is now. Because now it's easy to wash out, especially if you're a brother. Because they're not used to being dogged out like, I grew up being dogged out, so it didn't bother me at all. You know, I knew it was coming. But after I got qualified for my Green Beret qualification, you know, I said, I got it made now. And so I continued to do what I had to do, but I was still getting a lot of details and stuff. Now, I trained for another year in 1964. I got lucky and got assigned to Colonel Roger Donlan's team. Now, he was the very first Medal of Honor recipient out of Vietnam, and I was on that team. So I got injured on the field training exercise, and he had to drop me. So when he dropped me, it just seemed like it started the bad stuff coming. I wasn't able to go to Vietnam with them. So I went up to the 5th Special Forces Group. I was in the 7th. Went to 5th Special Forces Group in 1964. And I got into an uncomfortable place. So I got assigned to 82nd Airborne Division. I went to the Dominican Republic during the Dominican uprising. I stayed there for a year and a half. And I came back and I went right back to the Green Beret. And I still couldn't get to Vietnam. Now, I kind of like skipped over a little piece. The reason why I wanted to go to Vietnam so bad, the first 2 friends that I had got killed in Vietnam by my IED, a roadside bomb, and that was in 1962 or 1963. And I just felt awful, and I wanted to go to Vietnam, actually, because my buddies that went there and they got killed, and I can do my part, go there and kick some butt, really. That's what it amounted to. But I never could make it. So I got up to 5th Group, got in a little trouble, got assigned to 82nd Airborne Division, stayed in the Dominican Republic a year and a half, and I came back to the Green Beret. I volunteered to go to Vietnam. I couldn't get there. So I couldn't get there in 67. I couldn't get there in 68. So finally they say, okay, we're gonna let you go. And this was 1969. And when I got to Vietnam, I was assigned to what they call a mobile strike force. And that's a unit that most people don't want to go to. It was strictly a combat unit. Spent my time in that unit, which was advising the Cambodians. And I did well. I did well. Kind of like I could relate to them because they were my size. I'm small, they're small. They're dark skinned, I'm dark skinned. So we got along well. But we stayed in those operations for quite a while. I was in and out of operations. But we go all the way up to September. That's when I got involved in the action that got me to Medal of Honor. But you know, while I was a vicer to the Cambodians, I treated them as just, it was a conventional unit, American unit. I earned their respect and their loyalty, most of all. And so I never had a problem with them. But I kept my troops well trained. We get assigned to a mission for a major conflict, a major contact. And I didn't get enough briefing for it, but I felt uneasy about it. But I knew we were going near the Cambodian border. And I knew that the North Vietnamese Army staged on the Cambodian border. And I had told myself, well, this is going to be bad. This is going to be a lot of fighting. So I mentally prepared myself for it. And then I prepared my troops for it the best I could without giving any information to them, because that would be bad if I did. So I can only say something to them when we get to our point of contact. So we get to where we're supposed to be at, and we're moving out in formation. I'm taking all the precautions that I've been taught. You know, I'm taking in my head everything that I need to do right then. And I wasn't taking no chances to make it short. So we cross the rice field and we get over into the wooded area. And I'm very uneasy because I come by a village on the way in and no one's there. No one's there. And they cook outside like a lot of native people, native countries do. They cook outside. And there was a cook area going, the fire. One lady, older lady, and she was singing in Vietnamese. And I say, this is not good. I didn't like the setup. I say, there's no activity, right? And here's this one person. So most of the villages on the border, they were occupied by the enemy. And you could bet they were enemy there. And normally on the villages, they will have tunnels underneath. Yeah, so that was their safe place. That's where they operated out of. So I felt uneasy about it. I reorganized my troops for a fight, a big fight. And so we started to move out, and I get a radio call. And the radio call is from my captain. He said, the team sergeant has been killed. I've been wounded several times. The intel sergeant kicked the landmine. He's down, and we're still fighting. And I said, well, what do I do? You always taught to take charge. When everything else happens, you got to move up. So now I'm the one that's responsible for everything that's going on. I started to move toward them, and I saw 3 enemies try to bait me in. And I said to myself, I'm not fighting you today, I got another job to do. And so I ignored them, they ignored me because I wasn't taking the bait. So we moved out, and I accidentally, because I didn't know exactly where Team Sergeant's body was at, but by luck, I came right up on it. So I immediately went over to his body. I turned him over, and I know he was killed in action at that point. And I was raised a Catholic, so you give last rites to whoever or whatever. Yeah, I even felt sorry for some of the enemy that died. But I gave last rites, and they had sights on me. They didn't shoot at me or nothing. But after I finished giving last rites to him, it seemed like the woods opened up. Now, if you think about it, in that area, there were Buddhists and there were Catholics, those kind of religions. Yeah, maybe that's why they didn't shoot me when they had the opportunity. But after that, they tried to shoot me. So I had to get out. So I got out, came back, I got asked for 2 volunteers. Would you come in here and help me get the team sergeant body out? Went in with the 2 volunteers. When I got in with the 2 volunteers, they got shot right away. I didn't get hit. So we had to leave his body. Got those 2 out. I asked for more volunteers to go back in. Got more volunteers, went back in, got to the team sergeant body. The shooting has never stopped. Got the team sergeant body, got him out, and then the map case fell out of his pocket when they were dragging him out. Now, my team sergeant was a big man, so you just can't pick him up and carry him out. Now, he's 200 plus. And these guys, you know, they 100 pounds plus. So they get him out, and the map case fall out. So I had to make a decision. I said, I got to have that map case. There's just too much information on it because the team sergeant kept the radio call signs, the classified codes, methods of operation, troop move. You know, he kept all of the information in that map case, and the maps, of course. So I said, well, I'm going back and get that map case. So I lined up all the machine guns in the unit, and I told them to lay a base of fire down. And they did, and they couldn't hold the line because the enemy threw it back at them. It was that many enemy in the area. So I didn't give up, we didn't back off. I called a ceasefire, and I asked everybody to bring their hand grenades forward. They brought all the hand grenades forward. I told them, dump out the claymores out of the claymore bags, put the hand grenades in the bags and give them to me. So I had about a couple dozen hand grenades. And I said, I'm going back in for that map case. Now, my interpreter went back in with me. And I went in throwing hand grenades, this bunker, that bunker, any bunker that I could find, or even if I thought it was a bunker, I threw a hand grenade. So we get to the map case, and my interpreter picked up the map case, the enemy popped up, shot me in the chest. Okay, the interpreter, he was out of here. He had him in his sights. He could have took him out. That just between me and you, 6 feet. But he was a young kid. He had been in combat many times, but you know, fear will overcome the best of us. And he knew to get out of there. We call it DD mile. He was gone. So he shot me in the chest, and I went down. I took him out going down, but I'm down. I scoot up behind a palm tree. And doing my medical training in the Green Beret, you get a lot of medical training. So you start checking your body out and what to do. And I knew being shot in the chest, I could have a open chest wound in the back. So I'm trying to check that the best I can. But then I had bubbles coming out of my chest in the front. So what I did is I have to patch that hole in my chest. They're still trying to shoot me. I saw one more enemy, I threw a hand grenade, and I got shot in the hand when I threw the hand grenade. Then I tried to get to my weapon. They were still shooting, so I got shot again in my right arm. So I'm shot 3 times. I had told my young assistant that one person standing, he was an E4, green, just in country, didn't know much. But I told him, you do not help me. If I go down, you move out. You take all the troops and you go. You're the only American left. You know one can get them out. So you leave me. He did what I told him to do. He left me. So I said, I've got to fight my way out of this. So if I can get to my weapon, I got a chance, because I dropped my weapon when I got wounded. I got to my weapon, I fired all my magazines up. I had no weapon, no ammunition. I had no hand grenades. I called Air Force in to see if they could help me. And they told me they couldn't drop a bomb because it would take me out. So I'm doomed on that one. So the Navy happened to come in, and they had a small helicopter, OH, or Cayuse, I guess you will call it. But they told me they didn't have no nothing heavy. But they say we do have explosives on board. We could drop a couple of charges that will give you a chance to break out. And I say, let's do it. I didn't have no choice. So they dropped a satchel charge of explosives that made the enemy lull just long enough for me to get up and run. And I started to run out. I did not know how far they had moved out or whether I could catch them or not. But now I'm still shot 3 times. I've got to find them, and the enemy is still trying to shoot me on the way out. So, but I ran, and I tried to, in my mind, I think maybe a quarter mile, maybe half a mile. I caught up with them. And then I was able to get medevaced out because they were shocked to see me. Now that fighting started, here's how time affects you when something like this happens. That fighting started at around between 8 and 10 in the morning. I didn't get out of there till 6 in the evening. See, I had lost track of all of that time. I did not know how much I was doing, how little I was doing. But anyway, the time was taken up in an instance. And so when somebody tells me about, they lost their time, I can understand. Because you're busy doing what you have to do and you don't pay attention to time.
Trying to make it.
Yeah, but I was kind of shocked myself to find out that I had been in there all day, fighting with the enemy. But I got medevaced out. And on the way out, the medevac pilot said, well, he's got to stop and pick up some more wounded. And I look out the helicopter and I say, well, there's a lot of fighting going on and you're not stopping here today. But he did anyhow. But it was just a funny part of the day. And I got back to the medical facility, and I was okay. And got back went from that hospital to hospital in Saigon, from Saigon to a hospital in Yokohama, Japan, from Yokohama, Japan to a hospital back in Fort Bragg. And when I got to the hospital at Fort Bragg, I said, you know what? I'm not staying out one day. I've been in the hospital, no help, no nothing in the hospitals. I'm done. So they couldn't keep me in the hospital. So I got out of the hospital. I volunteered right away to go back to Vietnam. I was on the parade field. Now I got released from the hospital in January 1970. I was on the parade field April 1970 to receive the nation's second highest decoration. But at the same time, I had orders in my pocket to go back to Vietnam. So I never really did get the actual medal. But I went back to Vietnam and I went to Special Ops on the second tour. And I survived that one and came back, spent the rest of my time in the military. And never knew anything about the Medal of Honor. Never even heard about it or nothing. In fact, it was something, I didn't even talk about nothing after that for the next 40 years, I guess, when I found out that I was going to receive the Medal of Honor for something happened in 1969. Because I was completely unaware. Because I never even thought about the Medal of Honor, So I was kind of shocked, and then the colonel from the Pentagon called me and said a high government official want to talk to you. And I told my wife, I said, you know what, that's a Men in Black. And I done something wrong because I worked Special Ops, top secret. And I done said something I shouldn't have said or done something I shouldn't have done. She said, no, it ain't no Men in Black. If there were Men in Black, they'd be knocking the door right now. But she couldn't convince me of that. So anyway, the government official told me, the colonel told me to stay by the phone. The next day, it'd be a call at 12:30. I'm right at the phone waiting. And picked up the phone and said, this is Colonel Davis, and there's a high government official want to speak to you. And I had no clue of what government official could be higher than a colonel as a general in Special Ops or something. And I know I'm in serious trouble. But Picked up the phone and, I talked to him. He said, well, here's the government official. And say, this is President Obama. And I almost fell out. I did. Say, this is President Obama, and I want to apologize to you for not receiving the Medal of Honor 44 years ago. Now, you're going to receive the Medal of Honor, but you need to do me a favor. Yes, sir. He said, I want you to keep this as confidential until you get official notification. Okay, so yes, sir. In a conversation, hung the phone up. I told my wife, I said, somebody's pulling a prank. And I don't believe none of this. Give me the phone number. I struggled and struggled and struggled till I found the phone number to Colonel Davis at Pentagon. And I called him up. He chewed me out. He said, don't you ever call up here again. If I tell you something's official, it's official. And I done got this colonel very upset. So I hung the phone up and I had to wait 13 months. At 13 months, I didn't go nowhere. I didn't do nothing. I didn't talk to nobody. I didn't say nothing. So I had to wait from May of 2013 to March of 2014 before I received the Medal of Honor. But I did make a mistake, and I told one person, and they laughed at me and walked away. And I said, well, I'm not going to say anything else to anybody, because they're going to call me crazy like he did. So then I received the Medal of Honor, and very proud to receive it. But I had asked myself after I received it, said, since you have such a prestigious award, what you going to do? I have to represent. I've got to do everything right. I've got to show that I deserve this award. And I'm representing all African Americans in the country. Because at that point, I knew that there weren't many Medal of Honor recipients at all. And I knew that I was the only living Medal of Honor recipient in the Green Beret. So I said, you know what, you got a lot of work ahead of you. And I told myself, just like this, I said, self, you're gonna have a heavy load to carry, but you can carry it. I'm talking to myself and say, you got to do it. So what are you gonna do? So I made my promise. I committed myself to going to schools, universities, and colleges, whoever invite me. Okay, I've done this for 9 years. I missed one event. I travel so much, I don't even think I got a home. But I feel like it's that important. So I'm always gone. And I said, you're gonna have to do it right and talk about the military history of the African American soldier. Because I was there from the beginning to the end. And we did not have heroes. There weren't none in the, well, we got, I remember Adley when he got the Medal of Honor for the Distinguished Service Cross for the Sante Reed. Me and Willie Murkison were together in the same unit. And we came through SF together, and we've been trying to pull for him to receive the Medal of Honor. We haven't got anywhere, nor would Adley. So it doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. But we do what we have to do. And so I'm committed to doing everything I can and to make sure that my brothers are proud of me, that I don't do things that, reflect badly on me or them. I wouldn't tell myself nothing. I wouldn't have changed a thing, because I always believe that things are meant to be, to me personally. So, you hear people often say, well, would you do that again? I wouldn't have to do it again because I've already done it. You see, I don't never dwell about would I change this. Sure, I would love to have made more rank, this or that or whatever. But I take it as it is. And what I have now, I take and run with it. And I try not to look back. I don't have any anger, bad feelings. I try not to degrade anybody. I say, take what you have and use it to the best of your ability. And don't let the anger, eat you up. I don't do that. I got to talking to two young men not long ago, and they're finna go through the SFQC course. And I say, you gotta remember one thing. You represent us, you represent yourself. I said, you're going in with a negative. You're going in with a negative, there's no doubt about it. Because they can see you before they see themselves. I say, our soldiers are dropping out in the first phase. Do not drop out. Do 125%. Me and Willie Merkins say 110. I say 125%. I say, but you can do it. Do not, pain is only temporary. When pain stops, if it's so bad you dead or they just gave up on you. So pain is temporary. You go in and you graduate. You can do that. If you get through phase 1, you can go the rest of the way. And so they say, you know what? We're gonna graduate from phase 1. I say, I don't care what they do to you. They can do sleep deprivation, they can do waterboarding, they do anything that they can think of, but you don't surrender. Yep. Remember, it's not gonna last forever. If it lasts forever, you're dead. So you're not dead, you keep going. And when they drag you out by both feet, that's when you surrender, because you can't go no more. They say, well, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.